I thought it might just be an opportunity for each of us to get across some of our key messages from the perspective of our own organisations about how we're going to move forward over the coming weeks and months, as hopefully the lockdown will ease and the recovery will begin. So I'm just wondering if it might be a good idea if each of us maybe can sort of make an introductory comment as to our take on where things are, and then we can see how the discussion can progress. Does that sound a reasonable way to start off? Would you like to start, Richard, and perhaps give a little bit of context from your perspective as to where we are, how it's been going, and where you see things in the future?
Yes, of course. For the first time, my name is Richard Lewis. I'm the Chief Constable of Police, and my role is to chair the local strategic coordinating group for Cleveland, and also chair every 3 weeks the regional strategic coordinating group for the North East of England. And our role is, of course, to coordinate the response across multi-agencies, first responders and others as well. So COVID-19, we are many weeks now into the lockdown. As lockdown is seeing a drop in the number of live cases and, of course, deaths, which is to be celebrated. But we are still in the response phase to what is an international pandemic. We are not yet in that recovery phase, although we have started working on recovery to make sure that we are ready.
Good. I mean, certainly from my point of view as the Police and Crime Commissioner, if I can come in next, I'm Barry Coppinger. I'm the Police and Crime Commissioner for the Cleveland area. Obviously, it's important for me to hold the force to account during the pandemic, and we do that through daily, weekly, and monthly conversations. We've also commissioned some research on how the policing of the pandemic has been delivered, and my overall view is that the police have done a good job in difficult circumstances. And I suppose the third factor from my point of view is to ensure that as best can we maintain business as usual in terms of supporting victims and working with communities and the criminal justice process more generally. So that's my sort of initial take on it. Bob or Andy, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you to Barry and all of the people who are working as police officers, from Richard and everyone else, for what you've done. I know that it's been extraordinarily tough. I mean, my phone, my text message, my social media messages have never been so busy, and largely for 4 weeks it was all about distancing issues and people not conforming. And the police have had a really tough job, and we've all had support and elements of criticism. So it's been really tough, but thank you for keeping going and what you've done. I think a challenge for us now, certainly in Middlesbrough, with people having some time, is I'm seeing a lot of reports of drug dealing, and amongst many other issues, that's a common theme. Drug dealing in daylight, in relatively open locations. So my request actually from the police at the moment is that there's some increased focus on this. I know it's something you do focus on, but some increased focus on this to reassure the public that we're on top of it and we don't let people get away with it.
Very much so, and the establishment of the neighbourhood policing teams that we have across the whole force area, and obviously Middlesbrough, as far as you're concerned, Andy, one of their focuses very much is going to be drug dealing. Yes, we need to focus on the Class A drug dealers and the suppliers higher up the food chain, but on a daily basis, the drug deals and the drug users that people see in communities are very much lower down the food chain, and our focus needs to be on them as well. And there needs to be a balance between rehabilitation where we can and prosecution when that's required as well. But the focus moving forward, Andy, I can reassure you from Middlesbrough's point of view, is very much for our neighbourhood policing team to be focusing on drug supply issues.
Great, thank you. That's great.
Yeah, obviously it's difficult times, as everybody realises, trying to work remotely from everybody else. I think as a council we've been performing quite well. We've We have, I think, about 900 odd people working from home. Obviously, some of our services you can't work from home, and obviously refuse collection and such like. But I think what we've got into place over the last 10 weeks is make sure all our staff are safe, and obviously make sure that the staff are safe when they're working, and also make sure the residents are safe when our employees are working out there. I think we've been looking at what the government have been bringing in, and obviously trying to ensure that Stockton hasn't lost out. We've been working with the community and voluntary sector to create our community hub, which obviously is working well. I think up to Friday we'd delivered nearly 3,000 food parcels to different people. We're doing shopping for people, and even on occasions, because of the vulnerability of some of our residents, even doing some dog walking for them. So obviously they can't go out and walk the pets. So we're doing that as well. And also we're obviously working with COVID to ensure that residents are safe, but we're also doing other services as well that would normally be going on. Obviously, some services aren't with us, but because of COVID, we have to close them down. But we're working with our businesses to make sure that we've got all the business grants out, which I think we're up to about 90-odd%. It's the last 100 businesses who haven't been in touch with us, and we've been trying to try and get in touch with them to make sure they get the business grants. We're now doing a discretionary business grants to businesses. One of the things that obviously we're trying to ensure is that a lot of businesses don't go under because of COVID, and that's our great worry is unemployment after this. Obviously, there's quite a lot of employees around in the many businesses in Stockton, or the borough of Stockton, I should say, are obviously have laid people off with using the government scheme. What we don't want to happen is once that scheme starts to finish, is that we get lots of unemployment across the borough. Mm-hmm. We know universal credit applications have gone up about threefold in the borough, and we know from Richard's labour market stuff the other week that there's a lot more unemployed at the moment claiming universal credit, which is not a good way to be, because obviously we need to ensure that people have got the jobs are out there. So we're working with the Combined Authority as well to on our recovery plans. And hopefully those recovery plans will reflect what we need to do right across the Tees Valley, not just in Stockton, but right across the Tees Valley. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Bob. And Andy, I mean, obviously, just to add to what Bob said, presumably I know you've got a lot of different responsibilities with the council in terms of, different aspects of services to the public. How do you feel the council's responded? I know there's a lot of people working hard. Are you happy about the response that's come out under all the circumstances?
Yes, I heard everything Bob said, and all the same stuff, even the dog walking. We might be short of a dog walker, so we're going to get Bob to volunteer to come and walk dogs in Middlesbrough. But actually, we and Barry and Richard.
Happy to.
Actually, I am really pleased with the council's response. Of course, it's been far from perfect, and some residents have had frustrations. But sincerely, the response of the senior officers and all staff has been first class, and we've had a lot of volunteers. I'm sure Stockton have too, and the way staff have worked together with the volunteers has been fantastic. We've won a lot of praise, pockets of criticism in a tough time, which you'd imagine, but you'd expect. But we've won a lot of praise for what we've done, and I have to say it's nothing to do with me. It's the staff. So it's been an era where we've all pulled together. We've worked obviously with the Combined Authority. We work with central government. We're now a Beacon local authority where we are looking at local outbreaks of COVID and how to deal with them, and we're forming some really innovative and exciting plans for that, which is good. I'm very optimistic for the future. I don't think there'll be a vaccine anytime soon, but I expect there'll be a range of treatments that combined will allow society to return to something like normality over a year or so. So I'm very optimistic that our economies can get going. But as Bob suggested, undoubtedly and sadly, we're going to see a wave of redundancies. And I'm not saying that to try and be dramatic. It's an awful truth. This is going to be a very tough time. And I would say if anybody needs help, the council isn't always in a position to help, but it's always in a position to listen and direct people to somewhere where they can get some kind of support. Please get in touch with your local council. Times are going to be tough, and it might be tough for a year or two or even a bit longer, but I'm very optimistic about the medium term. We'll just keep working hard. We'll keep trying to help create jobs and support existing businesses, and we'll get through it. And we're going to be demanding of Cleveland Police, of course, and that doesn't mean we don't appreciate how hard everyone's working. I think right now we've had some significant pockets of antisocial behaviour in a range of locations, and I think that's a function of the fantastic weather we've had and the fact never before have so many people had so much time on their hands with nothing to do. And that old phrase, the devil, makes work for the idle hands. And I think there's significant pockets of antisocial behaviour that will need Cleveland Police's help on. But by and large, the response from the public, from all the authorities and from the councils has been good. And I think it's been an experience that we should feel that we've dealt with well, all of us.
On that point,
I would end up.
I'd associated myself with Andy's comments around the work of council leaders and those that work within the councils as well. Chairing that SEG, it's incredible the amount of work, the hard work of all four councils and the people who work for them have really drawn together as a collective, and it's been an incredible piece of work. And in addition to the wider point Andy makes around making demands of Cleveland Police, Andy, we want you to make demands of Cleveland Police, all four leaders, you too, Bob. We want you to ask more of us, to do more, because that breeds trust. If council leaders and members of the public ask more of Cleveland Police, it's because they think we can deliver more. So I'd encourage you to be demanding of the service that we can provide, because we are challenging ourselves in that regard as well and being demanding about what we can achieve. So I'd encourage you to keep doing that, Andy.
Okay, thank you.
I have a fortnightly conference call with all the police and crime commissioners, and we had a call this morning, and obviously it was after the events of last weekend, but what's certainly emerging across the country is that there's anxiety about the fact that we've got a lot of young people who have a lot of time on their hands, and there may not be in employment, there may not be in education, there may not be some of the youth engagement activities that we've traditionally been able to deliver between us all. And I think all of those factors mean that lots of young people, possibly with a lot of time on their hands, and we need to think about how at the earliest opportunity we can re-engage when that's possible. And I'm sure we'll all work together on that. It's certainly something that's in my mind. But I know there's some great facilities and services out there for young people. I know in Middlesbrough and Stockton and in the other boroughs, there's a lot of good work that has gone on in the past. So I'm hoping that we can pick all that up in the future. I suppose the other thing to think about is looking forward, really, and what Bob and Andy, if you've given any thoughts to where you want to take the council services in the future. Obviously, we probably won't go back to how things used to be, but I wonder what your views are on where we should be taking things and what we can do to make things better for the future. Do you have any thoughts on that at this stage?
I'll answer that. I know what will absolutely help is loads of new money. Obviously, that's what we need. Loads of money. Yeah. That's not going to happen. We are. I tell you, sorry to have jumped in there, Bob, but something that we were talking about internally just a couple of hours ago is that we are fearful that we won't be fully compensated for all of the direct and indirect costs, a lot of indirect costs relating to COVID. And it's going to put us in a situation where we've, gone into our reserves. We are morally and legally obliged to build those reserves back up. So unless we get more money from government, we are going to be in an extraordinarily tight position. And to spell that out, the way you spell that is four letters, CUTS. It's cuts. And so, we're waiting to hear more from government. The future looks tough. We're obviously committed to doing everything we possibly can for everyone, all people of all ages, of all income groups. Our job is to make everyone's life as easy and as help people make it as productive as possible. But we truthfully need a lot more money to do this. We will be working with voluntary groups and with outside organisations, and we'll continue to push that. But that only goes so far. We've got big plans to continue to help create jobs and cement businesses and cherish and nurture existing organisations here. But without money, that becomes extraordinarily difficult. And what I hope is that the government, I hope Boris Johnson watches this, but I doubt it. But in case Boris Johnson is watching it, or someone that knows him that is, or is that sincerely, to look after HM Treasury and to get the tax receipts and the income into the Treasury for the NHS and for the police force and for other things, prudently and intelligently support local councils, because we can help grow the tax base. We can support businesses and support people to stay and work, create jobs and grow the income for the national government. But we need help to do that. If we don't get the help to do it, the income to national government is going to shrink. And that's bad news for everyone. That's my major political bit over with. Over to Bob now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously got to agree with Andy that all councils are finding it hard to, although we've got money off the government, but unfortunately it's not enough. It's not covering the costs that we're losing. It's obviously all income that we usually get from a council as a council has disappeared. The savings we would, especially in Stockton, we were due to make savings in this year in children's services and such like. That's going to be very difficult to achieve in a year that we've had, and we need the government to go back to what they were saying at the beginning of this, that spend what you need to spend to ensure that people are safe, and we'll pay that money back to you. They paid part of it back to us, but as Andy says, they haven't paid it all back. So we desperately need that. But I think looking forward, I think because of this, I think we'll be looking at our services slightly differently. Obviously, there could be more people that we know that it's more people are working from home, obviously, at the moment. So in the future, we may well look at that. I was talking to our senior management team a couple of weeks ago, saying that so obviously we're getting a recovery plan together, and part of that is reviewing what we've done through COVID and how we've worked, and how we can put that into position when COVID's finished, to see if we can do things better. Have services done differently, because obviously what we've been doing up to now, we've been doing them services much differently. People have been working from home, and we need to look at that and review that to make sure that we learn something from COVID to make the council's services better.
Richard, what are your thoughts about where policing will go post COVID? I mean, you're in an improvement process now, and the force is improving, I know that, but where would you like to go next in this situation?
Well, the same is true for our workforce, as Andy and Bob specifically then mentioned in terms of working from home. It'll be true for all our organisations, but particularly true for the police. Perhaps information security becomes an issue, so there's certain roles which must be completed here within the fabric of our buildings, but a lot of our people have been working from home, and now that we've been pushed into the situation where they've had to, because of obviously illness and social distancing guidance, it's actually opened our eyes to the amount of endeavour our staff do actually put into their work whilst they're working from home. We've had to train our staff to work from home, and they've done an exceptional job. So the way we deliver our back office functions, I think, will change. In terms of policing itself, what we've tried to do over the course of the pandemic is to understand in Cleveland Police that our relationship with our communities needs to last beyond COVID. And so we were very alive to the fact in the early weeks, less so now because obviously prosecutions are down because lockdown has eased, but very much in the early weeks, we understood the impact of stopping cars, stopping people in the public and asking them, where do you live? Where are you going? What are you doing? Those types of police officers in England and Wales have been used to asking for hundreds of years. And so that's had to be delicately to make sure that we don't alienate the public, and that we start very much in the engage phase and educating and encouraging before moving to enforcement. So I think the frontline staff have done an exceptional job in that regard in setting or striking a balance between enforcement and the other 3 E's in that continuum as well. So what we've tried to do over the course of these last few weeks as well is to keep up with those improvements that you mentioned. It would have been very easy for us to press pause on all those improvement plans. And obviously Andy's on with the improvement plans in Middlesbrough as well, and we've seen some successes there, or he's seen some successes there over the last week or two. It's important that we keep pressing forward with our improvements. Our public rightly expect us to improve despite COVID. And so neighbourhood policing has been rolling out for the last few weeks. We've kept up the pressure in that regard because we know that confidence in policing, and the academic literature is settled in this regard, confidence in policing is linked very closely to policing and making sure that people know who their local police officer is, know who their local PCSO is, and have some confidence that those people know what the problems of the communities are. And so policing hasn't changed. It's produced additional pressures for us through COVID. We've had to keep our own staff safe as well, of course, that's been important. And so policing fundamentally has not changed, but the way we deliver some of our services certainly has. And just like Bob said, I think the way we deliver some of those services are likely to change permanently for the good, more efficiently.
Good. I mean, I think the future has a degree of uncertainty, and it also has a degree of certainty. We know that some of the challenges that we're going to face. I suppose it's how we can best work together to overcome them. And certainly some of the areas that I've been taking an interest in of late around domestic abuse, sexual abuse, and some other areas of activity. I think there's a lot of potential opening up for us working on a shared basis across the Cleveland area, certainly in some of those collaborative arrangements. And I'm putting together a police and crime plan, which will be coming to the police and crime panel in July of this year. And I know the local authorities are working on their own forward plans as well. I think there's probably quite a lot of potential for us to work more closely together, which will hopefully not only enable us to deliver a good quality of service across the whole of the Cleveland area, but potentially make the best use of the limited resources we've got. So if any of you think that there are any areas of activity where we can work more closely together, which will give benefits and make good use of resources, I think it's something that we might want to discuss further going forward. And I know you'll be receptive to ideas.
Well,
any thoughts?
There are very few problems left in society which are for the police alone to deal with. I think most of our systemic problems in society require a multi-agency response, and we've got Andy and Bob on today. We're very open and receptive here at Cleveland Police to working closely, but that isn't just on the basis of we need to cut crime, we need to cut antisocial behaviour, which are obviously fundamental to what we need to do at Cleveland Police. But to understand as we're asking for the help of councillors to do those things, that we must be prepared to extend a hand out to the council to help them with some of their problems as well. And that is, in a very real sense, to blur the boundaries almost between what our agencies do, and that it needs to be on a mutually beneficial basis, and not simply on the basis that we think one of the councils or another agency can help us with our day job. Perhaps there's things that we can do as well in the course of our duty that help councils deliver on their key priorities. Yeah.
Andy and Bob, have you any thoughts about where where you see some of the services going in the future on perhaps with more collaboration? Is the potential from your point of view?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think what we've had a history in the Cleveland and Tees Valley is that we've all the councils, 5 councils, and the police have worked together. We had a 20 odd year history of that since the Cleveland County went away, and I think we can work together. And as councils, we obviously sharing services as on things. Obviously, we work with Hartlepool, we work with Middlesbrough, and obviously work with Darlington over the last 10 years that we've been doing that. So yeah, I think we need to look at where we can work together on things, especially in the police side, because we all have our issues with antisocial behaviour and that. So if we work in partnership, and I think mental health issues obviously come up as well, that they're a big part of some of the antisocial behaviour, and I think as a public health and social care services that we need to obviously work with the police, because they've got a bad enough job to try and ensure that the criminality isn't about. But when you have mental health issues as well, it's all different for the police and councils. So I think in those places we can work together quite well.
Thank you very much to you both for taking part. I'm sure